Certainly so, Mel. We have got Australia's greatest one-test wonder. So I'm not on my Pat Malone. Of course, I'm with Mick Malone. Mickey, thanks for joining us.
Thank you, Damien.
With Flem. I've gone with a bit of English breakfast today.
Oh, lovely.
It's a nice brew. Now, Mick, people look at the stats. People love cricket stats, and they'll see Mick Malone averaged 13 with the ball in Test match cricket and averaged 46 with the bat. So you could have been our greatest all-rounder of all time. Why didn't you play more Test match cricket?
Maybe ability, but or lack of it. But it was the last Test in England before World Series cricket started.
Yeah.
So there was a 2.5-year break after that, and by the time it finished, maybe my time had gone.
So you would have, as a great swing bowler, bowling in English conditions would have suited you. So wicket's not a problem. What about with the bat? I believe first ball you were facing the late, great Bob Willis. How did that play out?
Yeah, God bless his soul. Well, I played and missed at the first three, and I nicked the fourth one to Tony Gregg at slip, and he dropped it, and he hadn't dropped one all series. And he said to me at that stage, he said, how, because I came at the number 10, he said, how can you bat before Tomo? And I must admit, I was thinking the same thing. But after that, they found the middle of the bat, and Tangles Walker and I put on 100 for the 9th wicket.
Oh, that'd have to be a record too, I would have thought there. And the skill as a swing bowler, that's what you made your name for Western Australia and for Australia. I think we've got some highlights coming up in one-day cricket, but were you always a swing bowler? Was it natural to you? Yeah, well, because the Wacker lent itself brilliantly for swing bowling, and bowling into the sea breeze, with that, and also with the easterly, that was very receptive for swing bowling. And I wasn't very quick, but I was able to move the ball at will. Now, what about that? Was that Gordon Greenwich? So you were noted outswing bowler. That looked like it went in.
Well, I had the innie as well, and a lot of blokes did in those days. Like Bob Massey, you remember him, and a number of other players. We could swing it both ways, and the in-swing was probably a better ball.
Okay, set him up for the outie. And batsmen are not the smartest cricketer going around, are they? They're easy to train.
No, but the outswinger got you the good batsman out. That's the one when you got the outside nick.
Just watching those highlights, Mick, geez, you played with some legends. I mean, Rod Marsh behind the stumps, that must have been fantastic, knowing that if you got a nick, Bacchus was going to catch it.
Oh, yeah, and of course I bowled most of my bowling with Dennis Lillee at the other end, and by the time he'd finished with them, they were pretty happy to see my little gentle outswingers.
And what about Dennis? Was he a big influence on your career?
Oh, definitely. I mean, he helped you all the time, but just his very presence, and he intimidated the batsman. And Rod Marsh always said we were a very good foil for each other, and maybe that was the case.
And what about one-day cricket? Your economy rate for Australia was outstanding. I think you got 2 for 9 off 10 overs at one stage, but you were lucky enough to have some good fieldsmen back in the day too.
Oh, yeah, there's some great fieldsmen around, and it was a bit different then when probably 250 was a big score, so economy was quite different.
See, Johnny Dyson took one of the great catches, I think, in a Test match to get off Roo Yardley. That's an absolute beauty there. Yeah,
it was great to have Dyson in the team, and a number of other great fieldsmen. Like Greg Chappell was a sensational fieldsman, and all around the place. And I think they were before their time, because a lot of us weren't very good in the field, but you watch today's fieldsmen and they are just brilliant.
Now, also, you're a talented AFL player or VFL player, premiership player for Subiaco. What position were you playing, and who were your famous teammates?
Okay, well, generally played on the half forward or the full forward line. Mike Fitzpatrick was rucking, you know, big time in the AFL.
Premiership captain
Brian
as well.
Sierakowski, the St Kilda player, and Ross Smith was our coach. And the famous Austin Robertson was full forward.
Oh, yeah.
So we had a bit of a star-studded side in 1975.
Well, Oscar Robertson, he had a year at South Melbourne, I think, in 1966. You had a run down there. How did that happen, and why didn't you play VFL for South Melbourne?
Yeah, I went over there in 1975, and I was going to play full forward, but this club I played with, Subi, wouldn't clear me. So they replaced. So halfway through the season, South said, we need a full forward. So they got Graham Teasdale. Went on to win a Brownlow 2 years later.
That could have been you. You could have been a Brownlow medalist.
Yeah, I don't know if it could have been me. There's a slight difference in our ability.
And so did you have to make a choice? Did Subi fall away as you started to play more for Western Australia and then playing for Australia?
Yeah, well, not so much, because I actually toured England in '77 for 5 months and came back and played the following year for Subi in my last year. But, of course, that wasn't unusual in those days. Max Walker, Craig Bradley, lots of them.
Now, my first moments of cricket was watching World Series cricket and out at VFL Park. And I remember you were a trusty man with the ball. You used to close out the innings. There was one infamous night that you had one ball to finish. Do you remember these highlights?
I thought this might get
all
a run.
lowlights.
Yeah. Yes, the last ball and the West Indies needing 6 to win. And
so there's plenty happening in the dressing rooms there for the Windies.
It's an ever. And I remember Ian Chappell saying, just don't bowl it near his legs. Of course, that's exactly what I did.
So you lose that game. Ian Chappell, how did he take that? What was he saying to you?
Yeah, look, he didn't say a lot. In fact, he said nothing. But the very next game, I was out of the team.
Well, there you go, wouldn't you? Hey, and what about, you played day-night cricket in World Series cricket. How would you go with the pink ball in night conditions here?
I'd fancy myself a bit there. I think the fielding could be a problem. But the ball seems to swing about at night, and it certainly did in those days. And, I reckon the pink ball does a fair bit. It's good.
No doubt. Hey, listen, you're an Aussie legend. You averaged 46 with the bat, 13 with the ball. Mick Malone, thanks for joining us. Lunch with Flem.
My pleasure. Thank you.
What a legend, Mel.